And I think as I'm listening to you talk, I feel like it's important. This is why, as I'm matriculating and going through school, in my opinion, and you can tell me what your thoughts are about this. This is why I feel like every preacher should have some form, whether you go to a seminary or some form of education, because this is critical. Because it's not enough just to preach an inspirational message. In my opinion, it's not enough, especially when you're talking about calling yourself a preacher. You want to preach, teach
Right.
the gospel of Jesus Christ. You have to have a stance on your Christology, your soteriology, eschatology, all those things. The end times and all those kind of things. And I believe that not just to be a good hooper. I come from a Baptist church. I come from charismatic. So the hoop is wonderful. The hoop is fantastic. I can hoop with the best of them. I can dance with the best of them. Shout, have the mechanics of church. But if you take all of that away, what are you really saying in terms of who God is? The systematic theology about God, your understanding about God, right? This matters, and so I guess my question to you is: do you believe that every preacher should have some form of education outside of just a call and the great charisma to preach?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just in Columbus, Ohio, last week, Friday evening and Saturday. I taught a cohort of ministers and Christian leaders, Christian educators, and I talked about formation. I talked about four areas of formation. On Friday night, I talked about theological formation and leadership formation. And then on Saturday morning, we talked about spiritual formation and ministerial or ministry formation. And I use the word formation really more so, not in the same sense of the spiritual disciplines in the mystic sense, but in the sense of development. And so when I talked about theological formation, one of the things I mentioned is that at the end of the day, whether or not that formation is formal or informal, or even non formal, if you want to create a third category for it, at the end of the day, the necessity is still the same. Uh, every person communicating the word of God needs some sort of theological formation. The modality or the delivery methodology of it is, again, is up to a number of things: availability, access, um, affordability, time. There's all kinds of things. We even talked about the pros and the cons of formal versus informal. So we were very careful to have dialogue in this cohort about um, the pros of both and the cons of both, right? So, but at the end of the day, we were all agreed that what are we talking about? It's like Jadakiss. What are we talking about? If we're up there and we're uninformed, where are you getting your
Yes,
information from?
yes, 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 and that's so important. It's so important, and I think now I'm more mindful. I'm more mindful. I don't want to say I'm on eggshells even when I preach, but I'm more mindful of what I say, and I try to be as conscious as possible and not get lost in, I guess, the experience when I'm preaching. Because I feel as though I'm held accountable for every word I say, because whatever I say behind the pulpit, if it is theologically off or theologically wrong, people are taking what I say and they're applying it to their lives, and they're
Right,
holding it like this is the gospel because the man, or how some default say, the man of God said X, Y, and Z. And if I'm not careful, I'm leading them in the wrong direction, right? And
right.
so, it's always important, and I always listen for certain things, and I go off in a good way anytime I hear a sermon and people are mentioning certain terms that you learn in school, like soteriology, eschatology,
Yeah.
Christology, because now for me, now you're getting to the meat, and I can really tell where you sit with certain doctrinal things, and all of
That's
this
right.
stuff matters because the only way you can effectively teach salvation is you got to have it right from the foundation. You know, you got to have it right. You got to have a clear understanding. Happening? This is Donte Carroll, host of Turn Up the Volume podcast. Listen, do me a favor. If you like this video, do yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button. Also, tap the bell and turn on all of your notifications to see this and more interviews and more shows from my podcast right here on my YouTube page. So, y'all hit that like button, tag, share, and subscribe. Y'all be good.